Welcome to Obsessed with Success, starring Russel Morgan.
Hey everyone, welcome into an all-new episode of Obsessed with Success with Russel Morgan, the founder and CEO of Morgan Legal Group, one of New York's leading estate planning firms. I am your host, Mike Leon. You know, Russell, not only in addition to the CEO of that firm, he's a mentor who helps attorneys build durable, scalable businesses. And in today's episode, we're going to be tackling uncertainty, right? Market shift, partners leave, cases dry up, or demand suddenly doubles. The question isn't if your firm will be tested. It's how ready they will be when the moment comes. Russell, it's good to see you as always. Happy New Year to you and yours. So let me ask you, when unexpected disruption hits, economic, could be internal factors, what's usually the first weak spot that exposes the law firm?
Mike, great to be here as always. Happy New Year to you as well. This is a topic near and dear, I think, to a lot of business owners, and it takes us back to COVID times. First place where you're usually going to feel it is on new client acquisition. And whether it's internal or it's economic, it usually translates to the same thing. It's less business that's coming through the door. And it could be external factors. It could be a recession. It could be that people are just not doing as well as they were before. It could be less demand for services. And it could be force majeure, an act of war or something that's outside of our control. COVID was a real teacher in a moment like this, where people either had to adapt immediately or shutter their doors. So that these are the pivotal moments that you're not planning for. If you're prepared, you're prepared for it, so you don't have to plan for it.
So let me ask you, because I know you're a good lawyer, you rely on some instincts during crises. Where does that instinct sometimes help, and where does it maybe get dangerous for somebody?
It definitely helps with longevity to make sure that you have reserves across the board, that you're prepared financially, economically, operationally. Where it can certainly hurt some people is it makes you comfortable. And this is where people put their defenses down a bit. And those are the most dangerous times. When you see that things are great and things are good, those are the times when you should be planning for the times when they may not be so good. And the best way I can put it is use your positive times to make sure that when the bad times come, that there is no change in your business. And if there is a change, it's to improve. Because let's be frank, in a situation where, let's just say, businesses are shuttering their doors, that doesn't mean all businesses. That means those that couldn't adapt and couldn't survive. And the ones that were able to survive essentially get the spoils. So use that time to make sure that when that moment comes, that you can withstand the pressure, you can withstand the change, you can adapt, and you can capitalize on the ones that simply didn't plan ahead.
We used to have a saying at HBO, adapt or die. So in that vein, though, Russell, I did want to ask you, as you look back at your experience, have there been moments where you've realized your firm's systems weren't built to absorb this pressure we've been speaking about? How'd you address that?
Absolutely. Look, every business goes through it. There have been times in our firm, it could be where you're not producing enough. It could be where you're producing too much and you don't have the systems to support it. We all go through it. It's learning from those experiences so that if there is a situation that comes up again, and let's say you're going through it, you know how to get out of it with minimal collateral damage. So of course we've gone through it on different variables that simply come up. The difference is we've learned from those situations, and now if it were to happen again, it's something that we can address instantly to make sure it doesn't have a long-term deteriorating effect on our business.
You know what I would love to ask you, because I'm sure a lot of business owners equate the resiliency of getting through that with just being able to save, right, monetarily. But what other forms of protection kind of help keep the business stable?
Aside from money, money will solve a lot of problems for you. Reserves will solve a lot of problems for you. Operations and your employee culture are extremely important. If your team doesn't believe in your vision, you're going to have a very hard time during hard times. You need to make sure that your team is prepared and that they believe in you and they believe in your ability to lead your company. If they don't, you're going to have a lot of stragglers and you're going to have problems when times get rough. Operations in general, your business structure, and this comes back to adaptability. And we'll talk about how COVID really changed the landscape. It opened up our eyes to a new way to conduct ourselves, and that being primarily remotely. You and I, in part, sitting here the way that we're sitting here now, before 2020 was not as prevalent. And there's good reason for it. And there's also good reason why we're here the way we are now. It's more efficient, it's more effective, and you're able to accomplish multiple things at once with less travel time. That epidemic opened eyes to those who didn't understand that the world is changing. It will continue to change with or without you. And either you're adapting and moving ahead, or you're simply dying. And there is no in between. We're on the cusp of another revolution. And we're here. And we're going through a lot of the same things. Artificial intelligence and tech in the next couple of years, and probably even sooner, even though it's technically right now it's in its infancy stage, they're going to change how people live. Forget about how you do business. They're going to change how you live your life. For business owners, if they're not understanding the benefits and they're not seeing the potential downfalls and risks, the positive and negative of both, and how it can harm their business and how it can effectively raise their business up, they're likewise going to shutter their doors because they're so used to inertia. They're so used to doing things the same way and hoping that it continues to be done the same way. But when there's a shift, when there's an interruption in the market, when there's an economic force, when there's some sort of material change that just completely disrupts the way that you do your business, if you're not prepared, you're simply unprepared. And there's nothing at that point that you can do to stop the change. All you can do is adapt. So rather than being remediary, we practice preventative measures. So whatever the change is, look out for it. Stay in the know, read, do your homework, understand that it's not just about your business. These market forces, economic forces, political forces, they don't necessarily have to do with anything that you're actively engaged in your business, but you best believe they have an impact on your business. So as long as you keep your eyes open and you understand how market shift and economic shift and socio-political economic shift can have an impact on you, there is some predictability that you as a business owner can implement and plan for so that when these tides shift, you're not just adapting, you're capitalizing.
Yeah. Well, I would tell you, as somebody who's worked in tech for 15 years, I've been video conferencing since 2010. So yeah, it's glad to see everybody come along with me. But let me ask you, though, because you kind of mentioned it about stragglers or potentially people leaving the org. How can leaders in those regards kind of make sure that institutional knowledge doesn't disappear if one person that's so integral kind of leaves the company?
Make sure that one person isn't integral to the survival of your business. It's great to have leaders. It's almost always necessary to delegate to some extent, but you can't put all of your eggs in one basket. You can't rely on one person's credibility, professionalism, work ethic, and hope that your business will survive if they leave the next day. You need to be able to delegate and really bifurcate your business and the respective responsibility of each department. And moreover, if they do leave, Your reserves should include employee reserves or agency or independent contractors, someone who on the fly can at least intervene and fill that role until you're able to find a permanent replacement. There should never be a time where you are exposed beyond a point that you can bear. And someone who carries that much power and that much collateral in your company, you need to take a second look at your business structure.
Very well said. Well, let me ask you, in those moments, communication obviously is key. You don't want it to break down during those type of stressful moments. If, like I said, somebody that's so integral is leaving the business. How have you kind of found a way to keep teams focused and productive when things are feeling a little uncertain?
If your team understands that you're stable and that you're leading at regardless of the instability, we're moving forward. A lot of this really is reassurance. This is the work culture that you're driving. This is the leadership that you're projecting onto your team. If they feel instability around them and they can't see that you're continuing, that you're stable, notwithstanding that the forces around you are not, that's going to be a bigger problem internally for you. So a lot of this depends on us as leaders to show our team that the forces around us, be what they may, we continue on regardless. A lot of this sometimes really has to do with relieving a little bit of pressure, because we do work in high risk industries, not just lawyers, but just everyone in general. And we're living in very tumultuous times. Sometimes it's just letting the foot off the gas. And it could be, a baseball game or an outing for your team, or it could just be a luncheon or something simple that boosts morale and allows them to have a sense of camaraderie and understand that we're here for a greater purpose and that your leadership believes in you and that they're here not just to benefit from your efforts, but they genuinely appreciate your efforts aside from the monetary gain.
Russell, one thing attorneys sometimes are not the best with is flexibility. Maybe you can answer if that's true or not. But how would you advise attorneys to kind of build flexibility into their operations so that way these adjustments, they don't always require a full overhaul?
Number one, you can't be everywhere at once. Number two, you cannot put all of your business efforts into one person's hands. Delegation in part requires supervision, but more importantly, delegation, meaning there's a team effort here. It's making sure that it's not one person that's assisting you. It's a team that's assisting you. It doesn't necessarily have to be an employee. It could be a series of advisors. It could be a series of independent contractors, so that there's not too much burden, not too much responsibility, and not too much liability coming from one individual person. And this flexibility gives you the option of being able to grow, but it also gives you resilience if somebody walks away, because without that person, your operation continues. So in simple forms, don't put all of your eggs in one basket. You can give some responsibility, and you need to give your leaders responsibility, especially your team leaders. But make sure that their team is equally equipped so that if any of your management level or C-suite level integral members do walk away, that your team can still operate and that your operations that are in place, which includes your training, which includes your standards of procedure, are effectively plug and play. That as long as you can bring in someone who's qualified and experienced, your systems will allow them to pick up and go immediately or as soon as possible.
Russell, as we wrap on this episode, if a listener out there wanted to run maybe a quick stress test on their firm this week, what are maybe 3 questions they should be asking themselves?
Number one, what happens if you're gone for a week? Will your business survive? If the answer is no, you're dealing with hot dog syndrome. Number two, is there anyone in your firm that if tomorrow they were calling out sick, let's say hypothetically. Can your organization still continue? And this is a way for you to see how important some of your team members are. And it's something to remember and keep in the back of our heads. The way that we start understanding whether certain members of our organizations are necessary is in their absence. When they're not here and they're taking a leave or they're taking a sick day, if you see the lapse and the responsibility that now has to pass to someone else that cannot without that person being present, you understand their value, but you also understand that that's a weak point, that you may have to delegate or separate between several employees rather than one person. And number 3, in the event of a catastrophic change in the market, or let's just say tomorrow AI takes over. This is a real example. Are you able to drive traffic? Are you able to support your staff? And are you able to service your clients? Because if the answer is no to any of those 3 questions, you really need to reconsider your business model and understand where your weak points are. Where in your 4 pillars of success are we having a problem? And it may be operations, it may be client experience, it may be products and service delivery, and it could be reputation. It's a possibility that they're intertwined, but it's going to start somewhere. Take a deep look at what happens if there is a force majeure, an act of God, or something that's just outside of your control that takes place. And can your business weather the storm? And if your stress test fails, plan now, because these events are real. These are not what ifs that we're planning for that may or may not happen. They will happen. It's just what fashion are they coming in? What kind of event are we dealing with? And how is your business able to survive, adapt, and grow as a result?
Well, AI hasn't replaced me or Russell just yet. So, Russell, thank you for the time, the insights. I appreciate it as always, my friend.
Absolutely, Michael. Great to be here. And as always, you can catch us 24 hours a day at 888-529-1315, online at morganlegalny.com, on any social media platform at morganlegalny. Till next time on Obsessed with Success.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.